Science, Consciousness, Veda, and the Self. Maharishi Mahesh Yogi's Gift of Knowledge to the World. Part 1. John Hagelin, Ph.D. Consciousness, the Unified Field, and Veda. Dr. John Hagelin received his Ph.D. from Harvard University and has conducted pioneering research at CERN, the European Center for Particle Physics, and at SLAC, the Stanford Linear Accelerator Center. Dr. Hagelin is the author of more than 70 papers published in journals such as Physics Letters, Nuclear Physics, and Physical Review. He is responsible for the development of a highly successful grand unified field theory that was featured in a Discover magazine cover story. He is currently honorary chairman of the Board of Trustees at Maharishi University of Management, Iowa, USA, where he is also director of the Institute of Science, Technology, and Public Policy. Let us now hear Dr. John Hagelin.
Good evening. It's very exciting for us to be here. This is an incredible and distinguished group. We have a lot of exciting knowledge and practical applications to touch upon this evening. We will be presenting a lot of important news and knowledge very quickly. We'll be talking about the indispensable role of the Vedic wisdom for the success and security of the world today. We'll be talking about what the press are describing as a new brain-based approach to peace, but really that means harnessing the power of yoga and yajna to create and maintain world peace. We're going to start by addressing some of the core questions that help us understand this very easily. First, what is consciousness? What is yoga? How does group meditation, Vedic recitation, and yajna promote peace? Seriously. To understand these things, I have to review in 2 or 3 minutes the modern understanding of reality as revealed by quantum physics. To make a long story short, the last 100 years of scientific exploration into the nature of reality have revealed that the universe is structured in layers of creation. Layers of creation. From the superficially diverse at the macroscopic sensory level of day-to-day experience, to the underlying world of atoms and molecules, to the world of the elementary particles and forces, revealing at the foundation of the universe, through the recent discovery of superstring theory, the single unified source of the diversified universe. Let me show you that again. Surface level of reality, the level of day-to-day sensory experience is the world of classical physics, macroscopic reality. Underneath that is the quantum mechanical world of atoms and molecules, chemistry, atomic structure. Deeper than that is the world of quantum field theory, the world of the elementary particles and forces. Each of these worlds within worlds, are not just smaller, and they are millions of times smaller, but qualitatively different. They have their own logic, their own language, their own mathematics, their own reality. And at the foundation of the universe is what Einstein first described and sought as the unified field or universal field of intelligence at the foundation of all phenomena in the universe, the fountainhead of all the particles and forces, and the unified source of all the diverse laws of nature that uphold the universe at every scale. To get a better feeling for this fundamental reality, this universal field of intelligence, field of existence, field of pure being, at the basis of the emergence of mind and matter, we can think of this unified field as an ocean of pure intelligence, which is silent at its depth, but roiling and boiling on the surface due to the intense dynamism at that fundamental level of nature. So we see the percolation, the effervescence of these microscopic bubbles from this universal ocean of intelligence at the foundation of the universe. And this is not really an ocean of ginger ale, and those aren't bubbles of ginger ale, actually. This is an ocean of pure universal intelligence, the superstring field, and those percolating entities emerging continuously from that ocean of being are called superstrings, infinitesimal rubber bands. These superstrings are like little elastic bands, like rubber bands, and like rubber bands can vibrate in a variety of ways. They can vibrate longitudinally, vibrate latitudinally, vibrate to the left, they can vibrate to the right. And depending upon how a particular rubber band is vibrating, superstring is vibrating, that superstring mimics the electron, mimics a photon or particle of light. Like that, all the fundamental forces of nature, all the elementary particles of nature, the quarks and leptons and the protons and neutrons that are made of quarks, are just the different states of the superstring in different vibrational tones. So in summary, the whole universe of emergent matter, the whole material universe is not a universe of matter at all. They are just the vibrational tones, the fundamental frequencies of this universal ocean of intelligence at the basis of you and at the basis of me. Universe is just a giant symphony of vibration of universal intelligence. That is the end of the physics lesson. But from this modern scientific perspective, transcendental meditation is a technology to turn our normally outwardly directed attention powerfully within, to experience and explore deeper levels of mind, quieter, subtler levels of the thinking process. Transcendental meditation draws the attention innocently, powerfully within to experience deeper levels of intelligence of the mind, corresponding, in fact, to the exploration of deeper levels of intelligence in nature. And in the state of samadhi, which is not something that takes years of discipline to experience, but with real yogic meditation from the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali and from the Bhagavad Gita, that Maharishi has introduced or reintroduced to the world, it's a matter of minutes to glimpse that universal ocean of intelligence, the immortality within. And in that deepest, silent, expanded state of awareness, pure consciousness, samadhi, human awareness experiences this fundamental unity, this ocean of intelligence at the basis of mind and matter.
Having heard from Dr. Hagelin about the relationship of physics, consciousness, the unified field, and Veda, we will now hear Dr. Tony Nader's keynote address from the Meadows Club in Chicago, Veda and Ramayana in Human Physiology. Dr. Tony Nader received his medical degree from the American University of Beirut, where he also studied internal medicine and psychiatry. His Ph.D. is in the area of brain and cognitive science from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT, where he was also a visiting physician and assistant director at the Clinical Research Center. He completed his postdoctoral work as a clinical and research fellow in neurology at the Massachusetts General Hospital, Harvard Medical School. Dr. Nader's desire to gain total understanding of the human mind and body, of consciousness and physiology, led him to the study of Maharishi Vedic science and technology under the guidance of Maharishi Mahesh Yogi. On the basis of his knowledge of physiology, Dr. Nader has successfully correlated each aspect of the Vedic literature to a specific area of physiology, with the conclusion that human physiology is the expression of Veda and the Vedic literature. This is the subject matter of his first book, Human Physiology, Expression of Veda and the Vedic Literature. This discovery has been appreciated by scientists and political leaders throughout the world. Its practical application has been documented by original research conducted by medical doctors and scientists, which demonstrates the effectiveness of Vedic sounds and Vedic vibrations for the treatment of chronic disorders. In appreciation for his achievements in illuminating Vedic science in the light of modern science, Dr. Nader was honored by Maharishi in the year 2000 with the title Maharaja Adhiraj Rajaram and given the responsibility for guiding the global country of world peace and for carrying Maharshi's legacy forward to the next generation. In January 2012, Dr. Nader released his long-awaited book, Ramayana in Human Physiology, and in the spring of 2012, he brought the scientific knowledge of Veda and Ramayana to enthusiastic audiences around North America, speaking to thousands of people who attended presentations such as this one from the Meadows Club. Now let us hear Dr. Tony Nader.
Ananda dhyeva kalvimani bhutani jayanti. Anandena jatani jivanti. Anandam prayantyabhisham vishanti. Out of bliss, these beings are born. In bliss, they are sustained. And to bliss, they go and merge again. Aham Brahmasmi. I am Brahman. Tattvamasi. Thou art that. Sarvam kalvidam Brahm. Everything is totality, is wholeness, is Brahman. All this is wholeness. As is the atom, so is the universe. As is the body, so is the cosmic body. Yatha pinde, tatha brahmande. In all traditions, this wisdom of the ancient Vedic knowledge has also been reverberating. In the Bible, man was created in the image of God. In the Quran, and on earth are signs of God for those of assured faith. They are within you. Do you not perceive? In the Tao, the nature of heaven belongs to man. In a poem by a great Imam of the Islamic tradition, consider yourself to be a small atom, yet the whole universe is folded within you. In Christianity, the kingdom of heaven is within you. We have heard that modern science has uncovered a reality that is described by the great scientists of our world, such as Dr. Hagelin, as being the unified field of all the laws of nature. We have also heard that the technologies available to us from the Vedic tradition, as brought to light by the holy tradition of Vedic masters, and in this generation in a scientific way by Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, has given a technology that allows every one of us to close the eyes and let the mind settle and experience our true self, our Atma, to be Brahma, to be totality, to be wholeness. And we have seen that this experience is not just a psychological feeling of well-being, but it has implications in our health, behavior, decrease in crime on society, and when practiced in a group, it reduces conflicts and raises society to very high levels of achievement, prosperity, and research has shown that international conflicts can be reduced. Dr. Hagelin also explained that as the unified field vibrates, it creates these forces and particle fields that become the atoms, that become the molecules, become the organs, become the individual, become the whole universe. Maharishi explains that if you go into your state of deep self-awareness, pure consciousness, and become familiar with it, you are actually capable of cognizing or experiencing the sounds, these vibrations that Dr. Hagelin was talking about. You can actually experience them. And if you experience them on the level of vibration, which means sound, you can actually say them, chant them. And that is how the Veda comes. So that is one very important point of consideration. Veda is the record of the vibrations of the sounds that actually make the entire universe. As they get more and more complex, they get more and more differentiated, and they get more and more expanded, and they get a large body of knowledge or a large body of sound and vibration, and that's what we call Veda, which means the Vedic sounds are actually not on the level of their meaning. And therefore, Veda doesn't have to be translated to actually be effective or to be understood. There are 40 aspects of Veda in the Vedic literature that Maharishi has organized as a perfect science of life. You probably can't read from a distance. It shows here Atma, and then Rig Veda, Sama Veda, Yajur Veda, Atharva Veda, and then all the Vedic literature, Shiksha, Kalpa, Vyakaran, Niruk, Chan, Jyotish, Nyaya, Vaisheshika, Samkhya, Yoga, Karma, Mimamsa, Vedanta. Then you have Dhanur Veda, Stapatya Veda, Ayurveda, Upanishads, Aranyak, Brahmana, Itihas, Puran, Smriti, and all the Pratishakyas. And Maharishi has shown how actually these values of the Veda emerge from the Atma, the self, how they differentiate into sound through Rig Veda, and how Rig Veda itself is constructed, and how it becomes itself differentiated into three values, Sama Veda, Yajur Veda, Atharva Veda, and how these three major values then get themselves differentiated and expanded through all the other values. So that is the way Maharishi has explained Veda to be. Now, how do we prove that actually this Veda is truly the sounds of the unified field? Because you could say, many traditions, they express values of reality in their own way, and this tradition also expressed it in this own way. Why and how we can make sure that it is not the imagination of those rishis who started to sing some song like people sing it, and then it became the Veda. How do we know that? We know that through two ways. One way is the effect of the Veda. Does it produce an effect? And that's what we have been studying over the past 30, 40 years, the effects of these sounds on the physiology, on the environment, on the society, and you will hear more from this evening, particularly by Dr. Ramayan Iyer, who's with us. And this has been proven to be very effective. Therefore, it is a reliable scientific knowledge in the fact that it produces the effect that it's supposed to produce. Another way to analyze them scientifically and to see what actually they are creating and how they are functioning is to compare those structures of those sounds to the structures that are in the universe, with the assumption or the theorem or the axiom, if you like, that those, if they have these sounds, they have a structure, their structure or their structuring dynamics will be similar or the same to the way the universe is built. Because if the universe is built in accordance with the rules and laws available in the unified field, and the unified field expresses itself, it must express itself according to its own dynamics. And therefore, if we know its dynamics, we can analyze them and compare them to the dynamics and the structures that are available in the universe. One aspect of the universe that we know very well is our own human physiology. On an objective level, this has been very precisely and to a very large extent studied and known today. So if we know this physical structure of the body, and we have heard that the body has made in the image of Brahman, in the image of the God, that we are supposed to be absolute, have all the laws of nature within us, that we can achieve everything, that we can be everything. Therefore, we can use that to prove whether this is true and whether actually those reverberations that are coming from this field, from the unified field, are in connection, have anything to do with the structure of our body. So we have a double proof. And what we're going to do, and what we have done under Maharishi's guidance, is to take this structure of the Veda and the structure of the body and compare them together. Now, what does it mean, structure of Veda? And that is what Maharishi explained. He said to me, don't try to look at the meaning. Just see, for example, in Rig Veda, how many mandalas, how many books there are. There are 10. Now, let's take, for example, the first mandala, the first book of Veda. The first mandala of Veda is made out of paragraphs. In Sanskrit, they call them suktas. And there are 192 suktas in the first mandala. Let's take the first sukta, any sukta, and see how many lines it's made of. First sukta is made out of 9 lines. They call them richas, 9 richas. See the richas, how they are constructed. The first richa has 3 padas, 3 divisions. And then each pada has 8 syllables, 8 aksharas, 8 sounds. So this is what we call simply the structure, irrespective of the meaning. Let's look at the structure of Veda. And when you look at the structure of Veda, and the structure of Rig Veda in this particular case, and see how it constructs itself, how it builds itself, how it organizes, how it expands itself, you can start to have a reference for comparison. And this was the challenge that Maharishi had given me, and that is, he said, we can find this in the human physiology. He had that cognition, that vision, because he took this knowledge that we are made out of Veda, that Vedoham Tattvamasi, I am the Veda, you are the Veda, everyone is the Veda, literally, that actually we are constructed. The reason we have 2 eyes, 5 fingers in each hand, the reason there are 4 lobes in the brain, is because natural law is like this. In a sense, this is normal to expect. If natural law is like this and we contain all natural law, therefore we should look like it. And that was the research, the first research, which showed that indeed all the 40 aspects of the Veda that we have talked about are actually one by one exactly in our own human physiology. You can find Rig Veda when you look at the nerves that come out of the body and you see their inhibitory and excitatory action and how they are distributed and how they spread. You actually see a one-to-one correlation with the suktas of the Veda, of the first mandala, and how Maharishi explained their evolution. So this means we are an image of Rig Veda. To take another example, for example, Nyaya. Nyaya is one aspect of the Vedic literature which Maharishi has given a function to as being distinguishing and deciding. And he says Nyaya is that thing which sees the outside specific value and also sees the inside holistic value. And in Nyaya, it is commonly described as that which is the lamp at the door. You put the lamp at the door, and the lamp lights the outside. These are the specific values, and lights the inside. This is the holistic value. For the neurologists here who want to think about it, and all the doctors and anyone who knows about the biology, we immediately think about the thalamus in the brain. There is a part in our brain, in the middle of the brain, that is called the thalamus. The thalamus connects the outer sensory experience that comes through our eyes, our ears, our touch. They go to the thalamus, and then the thalamus, after they have been broken up, takes them to the brain, and then they are rebuilt as a holistic experience. So, to me, immediately when Maharishi said that Nyaya is the lamp at the door that lights the outside and lights the inside, it was thought immediately that this must be the thalamus. So that's an interesting realization that in the brain there is something that has that kind of function. But that's not where the actual interest is, and the bottom of the reality of the brain being exactly like the Veda is, the interesting thing is that Nyaya, that book of Nyaya, is made out of 5 chapters. And these 5 chapters discuss 16 different topics. They are pramana, prameya, samshaya, like this, for those of us who know. And they are very precise, and each of those topics has a function. Now, if the thalamus is truly Nyaya, it must have not only the same function, it must have the same structure. And if you look at the thalamus, you find that indeed it has 5 divisions. Each of these divisions correspond to one of the chapters of the book of Nyaya. So 5 chapters, 5 divisions in the thalamus. That could almost be a coincidence. But when you see that the thalamus has 16 precise nuclei, and that each nucleus, a nucleus is a group of neurons, which means just a cluster of cells that have a special function. These 16 nuclei correspond one-to-one to the 16 topics that are discussed and available in the book of Nyaya. And their function and subdivision and internal structure corresponds to the actual thalamus in function, as we say, and in structure. Therefore, within us is actually the book of Nyaya in physical form. Like this, all the sutras of yoga, all the chapters of yoga are present one-to-one in our human physiology. These are the chapters of yoga, the 4 chapters. They correspond to the 4 lobes of the brain. And you can see here a brain on which are written, you can't read from a distance, the actual sutras in Sanskrit, referring to the functions of these areas and their placement, in such a way that the Patanjali Yoga Sutras that are in this book are actually a direct cognition of natural law, of the laws of nature, and they are produced and reproduced in our brain, in our human physiology. Like this, all the 40 aspects of Veda and Vedic literature, all the Shiksha, Kalpa, Vyakaran, Jyotish, the planets are all within our body. They are one-to-one correlated in their structure and in their function. Maharishi has wanted me to take this to another level of research and study the dynamics, which means how these react with each other, how they interact with each other. And he said that Ramayana, which we all know is the story of Ram and Ayodhya and Ramraj and coming back after having destroyed negativity and creating heavenly life on earth and balance in the kingdom, Maharishi said, that whole story is actually the story of our life. It's happening within us. And what the whole story of the Ramayana is actually how our body grows, develops, reaches a higher state of development, and ultimately reaches enlightenment, moksha, and liberation. There is a part in our brain that does what Bharat does in the Ramayana. There is a part for Lakshman. There is a place for Sita. So we want to know where they are. Ram is in this part of the brain, not only where he is sitting here, but he covers an area a bit wider here in the parietal lobe. This is called the frontal lobe, but we had to put him somewhere in the picture. But the reality of Ram covers a wider area here. That is the function of Ram. The function of Bharat is in the frontal lobe, and also this part of the brain, which is called the cingulate gyrus. Therefore, Ram, Bharat, and the others are not consigned to very specific lobes of the brain, but a combination of structure. Now, these are just examples of where they are. What makes the study of this most compelling is not just the fact that there are structures that correspond to characters in the Ramayana. What makes it most compelling is the relationship between structure and the dynamics of interaction that actually take place in the Ramayana, taking place in our physiology. For example, if you take the mothers in the Ramayana and the queens, they are the mothers of certain characters. In the study of the Ramayana, I have found that the mothers or the queens are the nourishing value. And Sita is the mother of mothers, and she is in the heart. She is the representation of Mahalakshmi in the heart. All the mothers, all the queens that appear in the Puranas, in the Upanishads, in Devi Bhagavatam, in Mahabharata, in Ramayana, they are actually correlated and have been mentioned and repeated in different ways. They appear different ways. And somebody in India had done a Puranic encyclopedia, you might be aware of it, and at the end he has done a family tree of all the mothers, the ladies in the Puranas, in the whole stories. And that's a very specific family tree, which means there is a grandmother, Asikni. She was married to Daksha, and then she got Diti and Aditi, and then Diti got so many children, and Aditi got so many, and then like this family tree, like you do a family tree, and it goes down generation after generation. In order to be scientifically reliable, if you say all the mothers are in the heart and they are therefore connected to the arterial tree and the nourishing values of the arteries, wouldn't be it interesting if the structure of the arteries in our heart and in our body actually correspond to the family tree of the Vedic mothers? And they correspond 1 to 1. This is the aorta coming from the heart, and these are the branches of the aorta as it bifurcates and creates all the arterial tree. And in structure, in function, in division, and in correlation, they correspond 1 to 1 to the family tree of the mothers in the Vedic literature, of the queens of the Vedic literature. Therefore, our arterial system is an exact replica of the family tree of the ladies, the mothers, the queens that appear in Veda, that appear in the Vedic literature. And now you ask yourself, well, what is their relationship to their progeny? For example, Kaushalya is the mother of Ram. Where should Kaushalya be? Where do you expect Kaushalya to be? Where Ram is, she is the mother of Ram, she should nourish Ram. And that's what you find. Kaushalya is the middle cerebral artery. It covers exactly the area where Ram is. Kaikeyi is the anterior cerebral artery. She covers exactly the area where Bharat is. Sumitra is the posterior cerebral artery. It covers where Lakshman is, and Satrughna also. All of these aspects are very precise scientific description of what is actually happening in our brain. Not only on the level of static structure, but actually on the level of the dynamics of what takes place between one character and the other, and how they travel, and what happens, and what takes place, and how they interrelate to each other. One great character of the Ramayana, which I'm sure everyone likes to know, and I promised one of our doctors before the meeting to talk about, is Hanumanji. Hanumanji, how can we explain such a very complex character? How can it be that a structure in our body will become small, then become big, then send messages, then go through a small hole, then burn the city, then bring healing aspects and all of that? And if we look at it carefully, we find it is the hormonal system. All our endocrine system together is under the control of Hanumanji. And you know, the hormones are very tiny molecules, you can't even see them under the microscope, that travel everywhere in the body, that can penetrate through small holes that sit on receptors. They send messages, they are messengers actually, and therefore this is how it is a message. Yet, as a whole, as a group, they are huge. In a split second or a few seconds, if you have a secretion of hormones, a certain type of hormone in the body, your whole metabolism can be changed, your digestion can be changed, your immune system can be activated or deactivated. And when you look in the Ramayana and see how Hanumanji is described, you actually find that this is a physiological description of the entire hormonal system. I let you read how the Vanaras, which are the monkey-like aspects, are actually guided, and their king, Vali and Sugriva, and the relationship between them, and how they actually control the hormonal system. If we look at the pituitary gland, which is called the master gland of the body, we find that the anterior pituitary gland is Sugriva, and the posterior pituitary gland is Vali. Angada is the son of Vali. There is a long story of how they interact to each other, how Vali goes into the cave, which is the Sella Turcica, a specific cave in our brain, actually, existing in our brain. And only Vali could go through it. Sugriva had to wait on the door. And the whole story, in its very delicate intricacies, how Vali told him, I will send the milk if I kill the demon. If all of you, I don't know how many will remember that. And you see that this part of the structure of the pituitary gland is related to milk secretion, how this part is related to other aspects that are described almost technically precisely in the Ramayana, in word for word, as if you just change the words and the Ramayana becomes a physiological book, a book of neuroanatomy or neurophysiology. It's just by translating the names from the ancient Vedic names to the modern names, you see an exact and precise description of what is taking place. And what is amazing also is that even if you go back into the stories, for example, Vali was said to have been born from the head of his father, Riksharaja, and Sugriva was born from the neck of his father, Riksharaja. And then they joined together and worked together. All those who knows embryology or remember something of it, we know that the posterior pituitary gland actually comes from the neural tube, which is from the head. And the anterior pituitary gland, I mean in our body, in physical physiology, the pituitary gland comes from the top of the neck, from the palate, the anterior pituitary. And the anterior pituitary climbs and joins the posterior pituitary. So when it's said in the Vedic literature, in the Ramayana, that Riksharaja's head, from his head came Vali, and from his palate or from his neck came Sugriva, it's an actual, precise description of how the structure actually developed, how they joined together. So these are just a few examples. The time doesn't allow us to go into it. Ramayana is so delightful. We could spend the whole night talking about Ramayana and certainly seeing how it connects to our body. But that's the point of the evening today, is to give us an idea of how actually we are Veda in a physical way, how Ram is within us, Sita within us, Hanuman, Ravana also somewhere, and how they all interact, and how the story of the Ramayana is the story of our own development and our growth in higher states of consciousness, and how by actually achieving enlightenment and higher states of consciousness, we understand all the developments of the Ramayana taking place within us. This is the story of how creation is made, how life is made, how our body is made, how our society works, and how our universe works. This knowledge, which comes from direct experience, is perfect and complete knowledge. If we go back in history, what was the reference for action, the reference for thinking, for behaving? It was self-referral, pure knowledge. Today, modern science has given us a lot to improve our life. We have cars, we go to the moon, we fly fast, etc. But we always refer in our actions, in our politics, in creating our laws, in our decision-making, to our self-referral values within us. We refer to what we know best to do. And that is because our physiology is also an instrument of knowledge that when perfected and when awakened in all of its values, it can know everything, it can be everything, and it can live life in perfection. You have that knowledge. Your tradition, your ancestors, your parents have upheld that tradition for generations and generations. And today it's only because modern science had advanced enough that we can truly recognize the value of this knowledge. However, if I'm here for anything, is to share this with you and truly to have the opportunity to thank you and thank Veda Bhumi Bharat, Deva Bhumi Bharat. And the holy tradition of Vedic master, and of course my teacher, Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, for maintaining this knowledge and giving it to the world for the creation of a true Ram Raj, heaven on earth everywhere. Jai Gurudev.